Hey guys, I'm here with Danny Clum and Tom Clum, owners of Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear. We're going to get started with their new podcast as well as some new webisodes. We've got a lot of questions from you guys about common recurring issues with recurves and compounds, and Tom and Danny are here to answer them for you. So for this first episode, we're just going to get started with some of our most commonly heard questions. Then after that, please hop into the comments section and leave whatever requests, questions, comments you guys have so that we can cater these towards the audience, educate each other, and excel in traditional archery. So our first topic today is going to be from Tom. The topic is a bow is a bow is a bow. He's going to talk about similarities and the three main differences between bows and particularly shooting them. So here you go, Tom.
Okay, in the last few years, we've got a lot of guys converting from a compound bow to a recurve bow. And there's some common misconceptions. I mean, most guys that go to a recurve, especially in the old days, thought that a recurve was something really heavy draw weight, and they really just needed to get here, get it on that target, and go. But really, if you want to shoot a recurve well, you need to take so many of the things, and most everything you take from your compound bow right to the recurve. There's basically only three major differences in shooting a compound or recurve because virtually all the body positions are just the same. When I was at the Lemming Training Center, our compound modules were only like 3 hours long because that was the point they made, is everything else is the same. We've got to anchor differently, how we orient our hand. We've got to draw the bow differently, and where we place the anchor is going to be different. But virtually everything else is the same. I'll just start with some of the similarities. The alignment that we put our body in to shoot the bow, the holding position, virtually the same. We're going to coil our body sideways to end a range of motion so that we have skeletal alignment of this shoulder to the front hand. After we anchor, whether it's whatever kind of release you have, okay, recurve, caliper, hinge or thumb activated or tension activated. We're going to have that elbow aligned pretty much right behind the string. So we have a straight line from that elbow to this shoulder to the front hand. Then we get skeletal support for your holding position. So the way that we align our body at holding position is virtually the same except for the anchor point. The similarity in how we activate a release, amazingly enough, is the same. We're going to use back tension for any kind of release and for a recurve bow. Back tension, without going a long explanation of back tension, is basically we're going to rotate this elbow behind the string, and then we have an activation movement with a compound. Say it's a caliper release. Our activation, so our hand is going to be more vertical like this to your jawline, and the activation movement is a rotation behind the string, which causes a linear movement at the hand. You can see the stretch band activate as I rotate this elbow behind my back. We're engaging a trigger. So we come into anchor with a compound bow, we set the pin on the target, we look past the pin at the target, and then we just look at the spot we want to hit, and then we start activation of the release. We start rotating this. It's basically, in a fancy way of putting it, scapular engagement. We're retracting the scapula. We're just pushing all this tension behind us this way, and you can see real lightly a very imperceptible movement on the trigger happens, and the shot breaks. Sear breaks, shot breaks as a surprise. If we've got a thumb activated, our anchor is going to be this groove to the jawline. We're going to want a 45-degree angle or more, because then when we activate the exact same movement, you can see the pinky will move this way and the thumb will move into the barrel of a thumb activated release. Same thing with a hinge. As I rotate around that, we're changing the angle on the hinge. Sear breaks, shot breaks. Same with the tension release. Now with the recurve, it's the same dang thing. We're in here, we have imperceptible movement to the rearward side. We're rotating that elbow around the corner. We just push the fingers through the string to a follow through. So the follow throughs among back tension shooters always look the same. If it's a caliper release, he's rotating through the back. The release looks the same. If it's a thumb and he's anchored like this now, we'll just do it with the fingers here. We're going to rotate around the sear brakes, and the follow through looks the same. So we're going to have to anchor differently. Obviously, the hand is going to have to be oriented parallel to the string with a recurve, like this. We have to take this pinky in towards the neck, so this is really flat to the string. And we come around the corner, and our follow through looks like this. With a index finger release, now our hand is more sideways to this. Same, we're going to be in the groove. We're going to be on the jaw line. We're going to have relaxed fingers. This is going to hook over the caliper. We're going to come around the corner till the sear breaks. Boom, we get a release. Okay. Hinges, thumbs, going to be on this groove on the jaw line, and we're going to have this at 30 degrees or more. That way we get the hinging action with the back tension. We're going to hinge around the corner, sear breaks, boom, get the follow through. So as you see, the activation movement's the same. It's all coming out of our back. It's all the same direction of tension to activate the shot. So there's a huge similarity there. So whether you're shooting a recurve or a compound or a longbow or any kind of trad bow or a compound and any kind of release, the activation movement is the same. Just the anchor's different. An Olympian's going to be under the chin because they need a high launch angle because their competition is at 70 meters. Bare bow shooters, we're going to aim off the tip of the arrow, so we're going to bring this anchor to a higher place. Somewhere bone to bone, we're going to anchor here to maybe shelf it under the cheekbone, maybe shelf it over the cheekbone. And we have some long distance shooters that anchor off the jawline or under the jawline like Olympians. So many similarities. A bow is a bow. We're activating the same muscle groups. We want to reduce muscular tension everywhere we can. We want to keep muscular tension everywhere we need it. But the muscular tension we're avoiding and keeping is the same whether it's a compound bow or a traditional bow. Lastly, the way we draw the bow is different with a compound. With a compound, we're going to have a short brace height and all the weight's at front. With a recurve, we can come up here and we can kind of pre-align our shoulders and then just finish off twisting into shoulder alignment as we draw. At the elite level, they pre-align their shoulders before they draw. With a compound, we can't. We're going to have to open our chest more. And when I turn my body sideways, and I'm not going to pull with this hand, our hands separate. So we're going to use our core strength to separate to get over that hump. At the same time, we're leading with the shoulder and using our back to pull this into anchor. So if I'm at a caliper release, we're going to be here. Chest is going to be very much open to the target. I'm going to coil my body sideways. At the same time, I'm leading with the shoulder, and I'm going to come right into anchor. So it's a combined movement with a compound because we need the core strength to separate our hands to break over that hump. And if we come, you know, our chest is open like this and we're reaching far forward and we're trying to heave this back, we're going to put undue stress on our shoulder, and in fact we can impinge on a clavicle. So we need to twist as we draw into shoulder alignment as we come into anchor with a compound bow. The recurve, we're going to pretty much pre-align as much as possible and come right in. So the way we draw the bow, the way we anchor, hand orientation are the main differences between shooting a compound and a recurve. And of course, lastly, how we aim. We're going to have a sight pin with a compound. We have a peep sight. We're going to circle it match it with the housing. We're going to pick our pin for our distance, and we're going to use a sight pin like that. With a recurve, most people will have a single pin sight. They'll use the arrow, and they'll elevate the arrow up and down for the different distances. So, and then there's instinctive aiming with recurves, and that's where your brain has the ability to see spatial relationships and trajectory paths kind of subconsciously. That type of aiming is very hard to explain. We just come into anchor, and we can see the pitch of the arrow. We can kind of see that trajectory path pre-shot, and there's a moment there we say, yep, right there, and then we activate the shot. So instinctive aiming is a whole nother subject, but most recurve archers use a single pin sight, which is the tip of the arrow. So anyways, there's your basic three differences between a compound and recurve, and virtually everything else is the same.
You have anything to add, Danny?
No, it was pretty
thorough, hopefully.
Yeah, nice job. I think the next one I'd like to do is kind of general recommendations for buying a bow for someone you don't know, that you've never seen before, you know. For our example, we'll just take like a 13-year-old. You know, they're 5'6", 110 pounds. Like, how do you buy a bow for that person, you know? from you guys particularly? You know, not how would you go on the internet. So if you want to repeat the question, Danny, just how would you buy us a bow for someone? And I'd like you to answer it because
we don't like to do that though. We like them to be there. That's why.
Didn't say
It's
that
like
at the beginning.
a big part of what we do.
Yeah, our preference is to have that person there, and then we can see what draw weight. That's a primary factor, what draw weight they're going to need. And now, as gifts, we have sold bows to them. We make sure they're very light and that the person can definitely handle that bow. But we always have the caveat, get this back to us within a week.
Well, I think that's
of their purchase.
That's the perfect answer.
That is the perfect answer. Get back to us within a week. I don't want you to use the bow and bang it up for 2 months and then come and expect to exchange it. But give that bow. He's going to have a bow in his hands, and it's really cool. And hopefully it's a draw weight you can come into an anchor with, and then come back to us very soon and let us give them their introductory lesson, get a foundation on their shooting skills, and then see what they can handle, what they can shoot with proper form as far as weight goes, and we'll make an adjustment there.
But Danny's saying the main take home is you guys can do it, but really try to get someone in.
The best way to buy a bow is to come and try bows out, get fitted for one, find one that you can handle the weight.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just not something you can.
And we get wives once in a while that'll buy a custom bow for a guy, and she wants this big surprise, and you know that one's even tougher because there's so many differences between custom bows. And kind of say the same thing, you need to get him in here, we'll exchange for whatever he might like better or fits him better, you know, but you want this big surprise and we want a cool bow. Yep, let's purchase this, and let's say we got a week after Christmas time or after his birthday to get it back in here and make an exchange in case that isn't the right bow for him. I'm Tom Clum, owner and founder of Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear. Welcome to our shop. Come browse probably the world's largest inventory of traditional bows in one store. We probably have 400 to 600 bows in here at any given time. Or you can set yourself up with a compound bow. We have just about every major brand. We welcome all experience levels. I don't care if it's your first bow or you're an old timer and you might be buying your 30th bow. We can serve your needs. Everybody that works here is a USA certified archery coach. One of the things we like is value added, so if you need some improvement on your shot, please ask us for that. We are the home of Solid Archery Mechanics, Cutthroat broadheads, and we have our own leather line that we manufacture in-house, like arm guards and quivers. We also offer a large line of different hunting products like Sitka clothing, high-end backpacks, high-end boots, optics including Swarovski. We've got a great knife shop here, and we're an elite dealer for Benchmade. Come check us out in Wheat Ridge, Colorado for all of your archery and hunting needs.
Do you guys want to talk a little bit about the main differences in hunting riser lengths and how they might affect the build of a bow? Hunting risers come in all different lengths, basically from 13 to 21 inches, which is a pretty big span. How do you know which one to buy? Okay. And how are they going to change your bow when you build it?
I'll start a little bit with this and let Dan finish. So when you're talking about your shorter bows, those are kind of niche bows. Those are blind bows, tight spots, generally less accurate at longer distances for sure. Short bows have, you know, the longer the bow, the longer the draw length before we hit a stack. It's an important subject. A bow has what's called a draw curve. As you're pulling a recurve or a longbow back, they're gaining weight per inch. And just for example, they may gain 2 pounds per inch. So it's +2, +2, +2, +2. But any traditional bow will hit a point where it starts to what we call stack. And that's where it goes from +2, +2, +2.5, +2.75, +3. And you can feel that stack. And it's unpleasant to shoot. We want a bow that's smooth all the way into your draw length and anchor and holding position. So you don't have that increase, that perceptible increase in weight as you're getting back here and you're loading the bow up to full draw. So the shorter the bow, in general, the shorter distance at which it stacks. So tall guys need generally, as a generalization, longer bows. So, but there are short bows that stay smooth way back. They're going to have a much more deflex riser in general, and the guys can engineer a short bow for a smooth draw further back. And so those taller guys are going to need something like that for sure. And you get some big old strong guys that'll pull right through the stack, and they don't find it as unpleasant as most of us. So anyways, a short bow is generally a niche bow. I have a couple short ones, and if I'm in a tight little spot, and I know I'm going to be hunting in a tight little spot, those are really neat to have. I'm generally counting on shorter shots too. In general, I'm 5'7". Forgiveness-wise, I like a 62-inch bow, but I've got some 60-inchers that are really sweet shooters. And I've hunted with shorter bows in the old days, but with preference and my ability to shoot better, I can see that more accuracy comes with those longer bows. I've hunted up to a 64-inch bow. Didn't find it unwieldy. I know your favorite with your long draw was a 60-inch bow for quite a while, and you found a longer bow in a tree stand kind of impeded the ability to shoot around the tree a little bit.
62, I like the best. 62.
Yeah. And so there's another thing called string pinch, and as a longer draw length, I'll let Danny talk about string pinch and your experience with string pinch.
Yeah, so I'd say most guys are shooting bows in the 60 to 64 range. We probably sell way more 62-inch bows than anything. Mm-hmm. So string pinch, if you just kind of draw a triangle from the tips of the bow back to your fingers, that angle on a longer bow is going to be more open angle, just more room for your fingers to get clear of that string. As that bow gets shorter and shorter, it pinches your fingers more and more, and it's harder to get that clean release. And so, when you're talking hunting, there's a balance there. You want a shorter bow that is going to be easier to get around in the woods, shooting tighter spaces, shooting tree stands. But on the other hand, you don't want a bow that's so big and unwieldy that it's just obnoxious. So that kind of sweet spot for most guys lands right around 62 inches, where you don't get the negatives, but you get a lot of the positives. So
I remember that you had a favorite Rampart that was 60 inches, but you really didn't like to go do a full 3D shoot with me because by the time we were done, your fingers were sore.
Yeah, a lot of shooting, and especially my bottom finger, but some of that was technically didn't know as much about how to properly load the string on my fingers. But yeah, definitely I would notice my fingers to be a lot sore at the end of a shooting session with that 60 compared to a 62-inch bow.
It's part of the reason also that longer bows are more accurate, because when you've got a very broad string angle, those fingers get through the string much easier. When they're being pinched, they don't come out as well, and so you can really fiddle with string tension and distribution of tension with your fingers, but even if they're proper, that release is not as smooth and it's more sticky with a tighter angle for sure. I'd say for most average size guys, 62-inch is the wheelhouse. When you get into those maybe 6'3" with a long draw, 6'4", 6'5" guys, they need 64, 66-inch bows for sure if they want a pleasant shooting bow in general.
Yep. Tom, I know you recently returned from a successful moose hunt up here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We talked a little bit afterwards, and you said that for bigger animals like deer and moose, you prefer the Cutthroat 200 grain 2-blade broadheads. Mm-hmm. And for a bit smaller, softer animals, you prefer the 3-blade. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
so when I'm hunting a bigger animal, kind of, as a shorter guy, and a guy that doesn't shoot tremendous bow weight, penetration's always in the back of my mind. And, most of the time arrows kind of sneak between the ribs, even if they deflect a little bit, and penetration's not an issue. But sometimes, like on a moose, I'm kind of thinking of that shot where it needs to be, but I actually center punch a rib. And moose have big heavy ribs compared to other animals, of course. So, and that rib's going to give a little bit, which rob penetration. So I need arrow weight, but I need something that we're going to slice through that rib and get through the other lung. So yeah, there's a bit of a concern. I shot a big 5-year-old mature cow moose this year. I was shooting a 550 grain arrow with a 200 grain cutthroat, and that arrow sailed through that moose and 10 yards past. The moose was still alive, and it was standing in a creek, and we didn't really want to see it have to, suffer much. So I put another arrow into that moose, hung tight to the shoulder. It actually went through the scapula on the far side and stuck out the moose that far it just hung up by the feathers basically on the far side of that moose after going through the moose and after going through a scapula. So I'm shooting 52 pounds, a 550 grain arrow. I did have a lot of weight forward to get the tune on this thing right. I had 100 grain insert, so I had 300 grains up front. So, you know, I had a lot of big FOC, which there's gives and takes to that, and we can answer that as another question, actually. But that bow was obviously more than enough to get the job done, because if I'd hit a near side scapula, it would have got through the other side also. I know that for sure. Now, I did hit a shallower part of the scapula. Granted, if it hit some of those heavy ridges, probably wouldn't have got through. The last moose I shot, last two moose I've shot, I've parked on the far side scapula. It didn't get through, but it sure got two lungs, and it was sure a quick and humane death for that animal. So anyway, 52 pounds, 550 grains. I like that kind of mix. I like, for elk, I like that 535 and up kind of range as a generality. I'm not necessarily a super big FOC guy. But I do like weight forward. I do like a little bit of weight forward. I like that 200 grain head on pretty much everything I hunt. But penetration is my main goal on the bigger animals. I think anything less than elk. I do like the 3-blade. Yeah, that punches a hole and it does a job. And what I really like about 3-blades, since you're laying a file or your abrasive material over 2 blades at once, it's a no-brainer thing. I can sharpen one back to shaving in 3 to 5 minutes in the field. So if I do shoot at a grouse or miss something, it's really easy with very small tools in my pack to resharpen a 3-blade, and that's probably one of the main reasons I love a 3-blade. They're so easily resharpened in the field. You have thoughts on that, Danny?
Yeah, pretty much shadows that. Yeah.
I shot a big elk with a 3-blade, and it was a heart shot that went through it didn't go through the chest wall, it went through the muscle, and so it left very little blood, and the broadhead just poked out the brisket on the other side, but not enough to really leave blood. And I think your first comment was, I wish you'd have shot that with a 2-blade, Dad, because we'd have got an exit hole and we'd have had a better blood trail. You know, it would have been quite a chore for me to find, although he found it in 5 minutes. But anyways, yeah, that's me, shorter guy, not shooting as big of bow weight or as big of arrow weight as a lot of guys can. And so I really prefer the 2-blade for the bigger animals. It kind of ensures, in my mind, penetration. It's that confidence factor. I've killed elk and I've killed a moose with the 3-blade, and they did just fine. But I still kind of opt for the penetration on the bigger animals.
Danny, this question is more directed for you, and it's about the compound draw weight. Oftentimes in the recurve world, we see guys jump right into the 50, 55, even 60-pound bows right away. They don't experience success and they give it up. And for whatever reason, they think that is kind of the benchmark for a Western hunting weight bow in a recurve. So the question would be, what's a good weight for a compound archer to shoot for? Because I've often heard compound guys come in looking for 80, 90-pound bows, and I'm pretty sure you don't need that to kill an elk or a deer. So if you would just talk a little bit about what you found to be a good compromise between power in a compound bow and draw weight.
Yeah, so, you know, you definitely don't need 80, 90 pounds. The vast majority, almost everything we sell is going to be a 70-pound bow. Most guys can handle that with no problems at all. I'm kind of an oddity in that I've had a bunch of shoulder surgeries, so I can't shoot the heavyweight. I'm shooting in the mid to low 50s and getting 2 holes in every animal I shoot. It's absolutely more than enough. The energy these new bows produce just far exceeds anything that the traditional bows are doing, and so it's just something to keep in mind. You don't need a ton of weight. Most guys can handle it because of the let-off and the way the draw force curve lays out on the compounds. It's usually not a big deal to get into that, you know, up towards 70 pounds. And if you can pull it, why not have that extra energy, that extra speed behind your arrow and that flatter trajectory? But, you know, one thing I always tell people is you don't need it. You absolutely don't need it. Shot an elk last year, nice 6x6 bull. It was a frontal shot, so it went in, you know, tight on the neck and came out his back leg. That arrow completely passed through the entire elk. 500 grain arrow, 54-pound bow with a 3-blade broadhead. So, you know, that penetrated several feet of body on that animal. So that just shows you what these bows are capable of.
And do you have any idea what the arrow speed is on that?
Yeah, I'm shooting that bow's in like the 247 range for perspective.
You know, for me, I can't shoot the 70-pound compounds anymore. I got a 60-pounder and started at 50. You know, I'm kind of walked up the weights into the mid-50s. But I look at the speed generated by that bow, and then my wife's got a bow that's 35, and I look at the speed generated by that bow, and I'm like, I'd kill anything in North America with that 35-pound compound. You know, give me a 500-grain arrow up, and it's more speed that I'm generating with 55 pounds in a recurve. And we know an older gent that killed a moose and got a pass through with, what was Wayne's bow? I think it was somewhere right, give or take 40 pounds.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah. So with a heavy arrow and, you know, a two-blade cut-on contact head and a little weight forward, these lighter bows will do the job.
Absolutely.
So our always recommendation, whether you're a target archer or a hunter, is shoot the heaviest bow that you can shoot comfortably and really well with really good form, whatever that is, and you're going to be good to go.
Last question. Do you guys have any recommendations for good elk camp snacks? What do you guys like to eat in elk camp when you need a lot of calories and something you can stomach when you're working hard in the high country?
Elk camp snacks. Well, we've got this snack that my wife makes. She calls it Hudson Bay bread. Mm-hmm. And that's oats and brown sugar and oil, and what else is in that thing? But
I've never made them. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, we need to talk to Mama Clum about that. But it's packed with calories. It's tasty as all get out. We put them in little cubes and Ziplocs, and that is an awesome snack. I get little tuna packs. I get jerky. I get nuts. I get dried fruit. We dehydrate fruit a lot.
Yeah.
All that stuff is not real heavy and gives us some calories and keep us going all day for sure.
Yeah, I'd say I'm jerky, dried fruit, a lot of nuts, granola bars, that kind of stuff.
Okay, guys, this is going to wrap it up. This is a quick one. We kind of wanted y'all to see the format. We're going to rely on questions from you guys out there. We've got lifetime of experience and all this stuff, and we just love to share the things we've learned and ourselves and share the things we've learned from our customers in the shop and our friends in the shop. We're kind of lucky that we get to be the center point for a lot of information and get exposed to a lot of things in archery of all types. So if you've got questions, and you know, there's no dumb question. I wish you guys could see some of the dumb things that I've done when I was younger and didn't know better, and you wouldn't be embarrassed to ask me anything if I shared some of those, and I will someday. But anyways, we're going to rely on your questions to drive this little podcast. So please tune in, and please get back to us with anything that you'd like us to answer, please.